The free 5-star selector from the 4.0 update gives you a lot of choices, but if you're picking purely for account power and long-term value, some of these options are clearly stronger than the rest. I'm going to go through every unit on the ticket and be very direct about who is worth taking and who really isn't, according to my own personal experience. All the timestamps are down in the description if you want to skip ahead to your favorite part, and if you haven't already, make sure to join the Discord. As always, this video is sponsored by LOOTBAR. And if you're playing Star Rail, or honestly, any Hoyoverse game, you're going to want to hear this. LOOTBAR is a global top-up platform that lets you grab in-game currency faster, cheaper, and without the usual headaches, which is clutch when banners are live and you don't want to overthink your polls. It's fully official, super easy to use, and the big selling point is the discounts. You can save a solid chunk compared to buying directly in-game, especially if you top up regularly. If you're planning to pull for upcoming characters or just want to stock up without burning your wallet, check the link in the description and give LOOTBAR a look. Now, let's get back into it. This is strictly a strength and meta value guide, and at the end of the day, if you have a favorite, just take them. But if the goal is improving your account, the gap between the good and bad picks here is not small. So let's get the weakest options out of the way first. JING YUAN is simply too outdated to justify using a selector on. His kit scales very poorly with vertical investment compared to modern DPS, and in practice, he is almost locked into running Sunday just to function properly. But even with a premium Sunday setup, the overall return is low. His first Eidolon is also extremely underwhelming, and if you want a lightning damage dealer, alternatives like Acheron perform more consistently across game modes. So from a value perspective, JING YUAN is a full skip. IMBIBITOR LUNAE is in a similar position. He's a very old DPS at this point, dating back to version 1.3, and although the recent Sparkle changes technically help him, his playstyle and performance no longer justify the investment. His B2 is still strong by current standards, but the amount of resources and team support required to make him competitive is better spent elsewhere. His base performance doesn't keep up with modern damage dealers, and grabbing his E1 does not meaningfully fix that. He's not a good use of the ticket. Now let's move to the middle of the pack. JINGLIU did receive buffs, just like Kafka, and she now functions as an HP scaling DPS. But even with those improvements, she lands firmly in the mid-tier. She can clear content comfortably, especially when paired with specific premium teammates such as Tribi and Hyacinth, usually in a -1 speed setup with Bronya or Sunday. The problem is that her output is heavily tied to having those exact supports. She ends up in the same situation as Blade, where the team requirement is very narrow. Her E1 is serviceable, giving extra ice damage and crit damage, but the crit damage portion is diluted because her kit already provides a large amount. She works, but she is not a priority pull. Acheron also sits in this middle group. She is still capable in certain scenarios, but she is approaching 2 years old and now demands a noticeably higher level of investment to feel good. In most accounts, she realistically wants E2 to smooth out her gameplay and damage output. Compared to newer lightning DPS like Aglaya, she is much more expensive to build and heavily tied to running specific Nihility teammates. The only strong reason to select her is if you already own E1 Acheron and want to convert the ticket into her E2. Taking her just to reach E1 is not worthwhile, since that Eidolon mainly acts as a stepping stone. Now let's talk about the units that actually justify spending this selector. Kafka is one of the highest value picks on the entire ticket. She was part of the first group to receive buffs, and those changes pushed her far ahead in her role. She is the backbone of all damage over time teams and effectively functions as both an enabler and a high-value detonator, and with the arrival of Hyacinth and the recent buffs to Black Swan, her importance has only increased. If you are building dot teams or you already own the core pieces but lack the unit that makes the team work properly, Kafka is mandatory. Her E1 is also a very strong upgrade, providing 30% dot vulnerability and becomes a high-priority Eidolon if your core supports, such as Sparkle, are already in place. Sparkle is the other standout pick, and with her 4.0 update changes, her value has gone up even further. She is now one of the most universally useful supports in the game. Any skill point intensive carry, such as Acheron or the upcoming Sparksy, benefits massively from her kit. Her ability to generate skill points, apply vulnerability, and provide team-wide attack buffs makes her slot into almost every hyper-carry composition. Outside of very niche remembrance setups, it is difficult to find teams that do not gain value from running her. Her E1 is also excellent, granting 40% attack and now an additional 15% speed to the team, which makes hitting high-speed thresholds significantly easier. For most accounts, Sparkle is one of the safest long-term investments you can make. Finally, AVENTURINE is a very straightforward decision. The only real question is whether you need another premium sustain. With the current free Danhang, many players already have a solid solid defensive option. But if you need a second high-end sustain for the other side of Memory of Chaos, Aventurine fills that role very well. He provides very strong shielding, and his E1 adds crit damage and a free skill after using his ultimate, which also makes him more skill point positive. He's a good pick when survival is your limiting factor. If it isn't, your selector is better spent on high-impact supports like Sparkle or enablers like Kafka. To summarize the actual priority list, the best overall choices on this ticket are Kafka and Sparkle due to their role strength, flexibility, and long-term relevance. Aventurine comes right after them, but only if you specifically need a second premium sustain. JINGLIU and Acheron sit in the middle as functional but investment-heavy DPS options. IMBIBITOR LUNAE and JING YUAN are the lowest value picks and should be skipped for most players.